Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Atria Mineshny. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we take a look back at stories from our sustainability team, from the shortage of helium impacting weather balloons to the issues surrounding wild horses. The National Weather Service is experiencing a helium shortage for a key instrument used in forecasting. Peyton Major looked into how the shortage is impacting Arizona and the upcoming monsoon season.
Weather balloons are launched twice a day at over 100 places around the nation. But due to the helium shortage, the National Weather Service is limiting their launches. These balloons include an instrument called a radiosonde, which collects temperature, humidity, and wind speeds as it floats into the air. But with a lack of helium, the weather balloons aren't collecting data as frequently. All year long, the National Weather Service offices in Tucson and Flagstaff launch balloons twice a day.
We're about to launch a weather balloon.
During the monsoon season, the Salt River Project partners with Phoenix National Weather Service office to launch twice daily weather balloons.
The reason why SRP is so interested in this beyond the larger scale benefit to the meteorological community worldwide is locally during the monsoon season, thunderstorms, and better idea of how to have more efficient power generation.
The helium shortage is due in part to the war in Ukraine. Russia is one of the main suppliers of this gas for the United States. With a lack of helium, the Phoenix National Weather Service will restrict weather balloon launches to only severe weather days. Arizona Air Boutique is one of the main helium suppliers for weather balloons. They've noticed a major spike in helium costs.
When I first took over the business, the retail price for a tank of helium was about $40 retail. It's now about $180.
Lapori's business is busy now during graduation season, but he's worried about the future if prices continue to rise.
How much are people willing to pay for a helium balloon? Because it's going to just continue to escalate in the price.
As for weather balloons, the National Weather Service released a statement saying forecast accuracy won't be affected by the helium shortage. In fact, they say most of the weather balloons in America are fueled with hydrogen instead of helium. Salt River Project still uses helium and is concerned about supplies for the monsoon season.
In stock at SRP, we have about 25% of the supply we would need this summer to get through a whole summer business as usual. Right now, we can't order more. This month, there's basically no more helium available to come right now.
Weather offices in Phoenix and Tucson continue to use helium, saying it's a safer option in urban areas. But they are looking for other methods to fuel their balloon launches. In the newsroom, Peyton Major, Cronkite News.
The Winter Olympic Games wrapped up last month in Beijing, and now the Paralympics start today. So eyes are back on Beijing's snowy or not so snowy mountains. Cronkite News' Evan List joins us now to explain why there is growing concern about how reliable snow can be for future games.
For snowboarder Spirit Burnt of Tucson, she's just happy to have a day on the slopes at Arizona Snow Bowl.
Been coming here for like 3 years now.
It's low-latitude ski resorts like Snow Bowl and Sunrise Park Resort in the White Mountains that are more vulnerable to climate change. Kyle Swatsky with Arizona Snow Bowl says the resort has historically depended on natural snow, but he says that was too variable. So introducing artificial snow 10 years ago was key to creating a reliable ski season.
It's really changed the game and made the season a lot longer and more enjoyable for everybody.
Despite Flagstaff being located in an arid Sunbelt state, Snow Bowl, Arizona uses this dryness to its advantage.
Snowmaking works best with as little moisture as possible in the air. This, along with freezing overnight temperatures in Flagstaff, mean powder enthusiasts have plenty of snow to safely enjoy at Snow Bowl. But the Winter Olympics in Beijing this year showed just how variable natural snow conditions can be.
Planning for an Winter Olympics where you're planning 8-10 years out, you need that reliability. You need to be pretty certain that you're going to be able to hold the games ahead of time.
Natalie Knowles is a researcher at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. She recently co-authored a study compiling interviews with over 300 athletes and coaches to figure out both the safest and fairest conditions for the Winter Olympics.
Basically, that wet, heavy snow is really what athletes find to be quite dangerous and quite unfair. And so
the study concluded that if global emissions remain at current levels, only one city out of the past 21 that have hosted the Winter Olympic Games could reliably provide safe and fair conditions for competition by 2080. But Knowles says there's still reason to hope if emissions can be lowered.
a low emissions future was across the board. Everywhere had better conditions, and the reliability was just way higher.
Reliability in Flagstaff means snowmaking at Arizona Snow Bowl, so skiers and snowboarders can enjoy the mountain for as much of the season as possible.
It's safe. I'm most comfortable here. It's probably one of the safest mountains to ride and to learn on too.
As ski resorts in Arizona and beyond work to balance winter play with a changing climate, the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change this week warns that climate change is here and may happen faster than expected. In Flagstaff, Evan Liss, Cronkite News.
A group of activists gathered this morning in North Phoenix to send a message to Arizona's 2 U.S. senators. They're concerned about climate change and how this is affecting Arizona. Liz Flores tells us what that message is and why now is the time for action.
A few days after the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report was released, that indicates that the dangers it presents on the planet. Local activists call for action to protect Arizonans.
And this is our time. This is our opportunity.
Will Humble from the Public Health Association walked among the group from Kristen Sinema's office to Senator Mark Kelly's office with a message.
To make sure that they understand the importance of the role that they play in the history of this planet and the future generations and the people living right here today.
They want the Arizona leaders to pass a $550 billion in investments in climate, justice, and jobs.
And that we can't wait for another bill to come along to get this done.
Drought equals agriculture and food insecurity. Drought leads to wildfires. Wildfires lead to poor air quality. Poor air quality impacts children, the elderly, pregnant people, babies, and leads to chronic conditions, COPD, cardiovascular disease.
They hope their actions will affect upcoming decisions on climate change efforts.
Economic concerns and disproportionate impacts on communities of color are all reasons we must have bold investments in climate, jobs, and justice.
Democrats in Congress are expected to reconstruct legislation that would increase tax incentives for renewable energy. Cronkite News reached out to both Kristen Sinema and Mark Kelly for a comment on the march, but had not heard back in time for this broadcast. In the newsroom, Liz Flores, Cronkite News.
Phoenix residents are exposed to unhealthy air pollution, according to the 2022 State of the Air report from the American Lung Association. Cronkite News reporter Valeria Rodriguez tells us what Arizona counties are most affected and what is causing this rise.
Particle pollution and ozone are the most harmful and widespread types of air pollution in the valley. The 2022 State of Air report indicates that Phoenix ranked 5th for high ozone days out of 226 metropolitan areas. We experienced more days of short-term particle pollution, ranking 11th, making us one of the most polluted cities in the country. And we ranked 8th for annual particle pollution. Joanna Strother from the American Lung Association explains what is causing this issue.
So we are seeing more wildfires. The rising temperatures associated with climate change do increase ozone and particle pollution and do cause more frequent and catastrophic wildfires. So we're heading into wildfire season here in Arizona, and we see some already in the northern part of the state.
The report also shows that 4 counties received an F grade for the number of ozone days, and 3 were giving a C. Health experts say that the levels of ozone and particle pollution can harm all residents and lead to many chronic diseases, including lung cancer. In the newsroom, Valeria Rodriguez, Cronkite News.
High winds and wildfires are always a dangerous combination, and we've got a little bit of both here today in Arizona. Nick Shesky is here to tell us what this means for fire conditions across the state.
The National Weather Service has issued a red flag warning for much of southwest and south central Arizona due to some 35-mile-per-hour winds cascading through the state. Now, we have two very problematic wildfires pop up this week in Arizona. The Crooks wildfire just south of Prescott and the Tunnel wildfire north of Flagstaff. Right now, the Crooks wildfire is the largest of the two at around 600 acres. Fire crews from the Prescott National Forest have been working diligently these past 24 hours on structure protection and burning fuels along certain roads. But as of late this afternoon, the wildfire is 0% contained. And now evacuation orders are in place for both areas within Prescott and the Coconino National Forest. At least 100 homes are threatened along Highway 89, and there's also several road closures, so it's probably best to avoid both these areas as much as possible. To lower the chances of another wildfire popping up, the Coconino National Forest has canceled all of their prescribed burns for today. The Forest Service originally planned to burn over 2,000 acres. Normally, prescribed burns help the area by reducing the amount of hazardous fuels in the landscape and leaving behind nutrient-rich ash for the environment. But with today's high wind, it's too unpredictable. The burns have been postponed indefinitely.
We all know trees are a precious resource to the valley, providing shade and helping to clean the air. Peyton Major tells us about a program that is working to get rid of some safety hazards and bring more green to our cities.
The city of Peoria is about to look greener. Salt River Project began planting trees this week as part of their Right Tree, Right Place program.
Our mission was to remove trees that were encroaching on SRP's overhead power lines. For every tree we removed, we replanted with either 3 24-inch box trees or 6 15-gallon trees.
Professional arborists dig in to plant 50 trees in Peoria's Pioneer Community Park. Peoria City arborist Ryan McCartney says they have lost some trees here in the past.
And these trees will be placed in areas that will help reduce that urban heat island effect, cool the pavement, a place for people to recreate, sit underneath the trees in the shade, and enjoy the park and the amenities that it has to offer.
For 6 years, the program's employees have planted native trees across Arizona. And by April, Peoria will have 500 new trees in parks and community spaces.
We were planting trees much like the one behind me here. This is recently planted today. This is a red push pistache.
The planting process includes hand digging a large hole, which creates better airflow than mechanical tools.
We use stakes on the tree. Stakes are not necessary if the tree can stand by itself, but if the tree is taller like this one, it's in a park setting where people might pull on it, it's a good idea to put stakes to help give it support for the first about year of its life.
And with a good start, the hope is these trees will prosper for years to come. In Peoria, Peyton Major, Cronkite News.
When you're driving on the road, you've probably seen more of those blue license plates with clouds on them. Many of them are attached to the backs of electric vehicles, which are becoming more popular nationwide. And now a new bill in the state legislature could make it easier for owners to charge up across Arizona. It's like driving a remote control car.
Oh yeah, so here, he's really funny because you can have a fart. Let's see.
For Patrick Callalang, his Tesla is more than just fun.
Well, at the time, I was, my wife and I, we were expecting a baby. And so I was researching on the internet, and that the Tesla was the safest car out there. So I got the Tesla just for the baby.
Since he bought the car 6 years ago, he's seen a jump in the number of people who also own one.
Probably no more than a dozen other people that have it.
And there's more than just a dozen. In fact, 7% of U.S. car owners drive an electric or hybrid. Senator Victoria Steele of Tucson says Arizona is experiencing a wave of new electric cars.
We've been hearing about the tsunami of electric vehicles. It's coming and it's going to be here. Prepare for it. Well, I'm here to tell you it's already arrived.
Senator Steele sponsored Senate Bill 1152, which hopes to tap into the bipartisan infrastructure law to build electric vehicle charging stations across the state.
In order to get this funding, the states have to submit a plan to the United States Department of Transportation describing how they intend to use these federal funds. That's it.
According to Steele, Arizona could get around $76 million for electric vehicle infrastructure, which not only helps our economy, but also the environment.
Very significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions relate to transportation.
Ryan Cornell, a senior global futures scientist at Arizona State University, says more electric vehicles on the road decreases greenhouse gas emissions, but it won't happen overnight.
It's not like you just snap your fingers and all of a sudden all those emissions go away, but there is a dramatic reduction in emissions when you go from a gasoline-powered vehicle to a electric-powered one.
Senator Steele wants funding to come to Arizona and not our western neighbors.
I'll be darned. We need that money here.
For Callalang, having an electric vehicle is way more convenient.
And that is another advantage that I never go to the shop.
Another bill sponsored by Senator Steele would set aside $500,000 from the state's general fund for electric vehicle charging stations at state agency buildings. The bill passed out of the Appropriations Committee on a 7-3 vote.
The city of Scottsdale is making water cuts in an effort to reduce consumption from the Colorado River. Cronkite News reporter Luke Vickery tells us where the cuts are coming from and who is being most affected.
Scottsdale receives about 70% of its water supply from the Colorado River. And while most residents will not feel the impact of these latest cuts at their faucets, the city is asking residents to conserve, especially when it comes from outdoor usage.
Arizona's brown landscape is due in part to 15 years of drought. Scottsdale is one of the first cities to decide it's time to make water cuts.
Let our residents know that it's a serious situation. We have enough water for our residents, but we really wanted them to understand the serious nature of the Colorado River cutbacks.
The seriousness of the drought does not just extend to people living in Scottsdale. Residents living outside the city can also be affected depending on what kind of water systems are used on their property.
Couldn't imagine not having water to our home.
For the past decade, DeAngelis serviced her home with hauled water from Scottsdale.
So you can see behind me, so I have hauled water out here. So a truck comes, delivers our water, currently getting it from City of Scottsdale, and then they fill our water tank.
But as part of the Tier 1 water shortage stage, the city recently decided they will no longer service water hauling in her area, leaving her in need of a quick solution.
This neighborhood is just a glimpse of what's to come for the rest of the state.
Also part of Tier 1, the city itself is keeping their promise to cut back on its own water usage.
Try to up our own game with a pledge of saving 5% at city facilities as well.
The city of Scottsdale is working to better manage their water through areas like public parks like these. But the city can't do it alone. They're also asking residents to do their part in better managing their personal water usage.
One way people can do that is by changing the landscape to xeriscaping, which requires little to no irrigation, something DeAngelis is already doing.
Not watering big yards and grass and thinking what we're doing with golf courses and all of those things, we're going to have to get really creative to conserve water.
Scottsdale may be the first city in Maricopa County to implement a Tier 1 water management plan. But if the drought continues, more cities could face similar cuts.
The city of Scottsdale has only implemented Tier 1 of their drought management plan. But if the Colorado River drops in the next year, like it is projected, the city and residents may have to do more to conserve water. In the studio, Luke Vickery, Cronkite News.
8% of Arizona's energy comes from solar. But what happens when your solar panels reach their end of life? Cronkite News reporter Peyton Major found researchers and a business that are giving old panels a new purpose.
Solar panels are expected to contribute 8 million tons of waste by 2030, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency. So it's now more important than ever to recycle panels sustainably, and Arizona is one of the states leading this effort. Yeah. So what happens when a solar panel reaches the end of its 20 to 30-year lifespan? Well, the last place it should end up is in a landfill. That's why an Arizona State University professor and his team are working on a technology to salvage the panel's precious metals, such as silicon, silver, and even lead.
I am working on increasing the recovery rates of the lead. We don't want this ending up in our environment, in our groundwater, things like that.
And with a $485,000 grant from the Department of Energy, Meng Tao is hoping to revolutionize the solar panel recycling industry using chemicals to break down high-value metals.
We want to recover all the materials contained in solar panels, and then we can reuse these materials in making new solar panels.
A We Recycle solar facility in Yuma salvages these high-value materials without chemicals. Normally, they process up to 2,500 panels a day, removing the aluminum frame and glass exteriors. However, issues related to the pandemic have workers recycling by hand.
Supply chain issues have been very painful for us. We're on a 24-week delay that we just got informed about this morning for one of our main pieces of power equipment.
Until their power equipment arrives, the team won't have fully automatic operations. The equipment is useful for breaking down materials to be used in solar panels.
But we make it our goal to avoid landfill for at least 95% of what comes in the door here.
While their plant in Yuma continues to recycle hands-on, Arizona State University will work microscopically to ensure solar energy remains sustainable.
Thousands of wild horses roam across the West, and Arizona has a number of wild herds. In eastern Arizona, there's a herd of around 400 that are in the center of a battle between a horse protection group and the federal government. Cronkite News reporter Mitchell Zimmerman explains how these horses may be removed from federal land.
The Bureau of Land Management estimates there are more than 82,000 wild horses and burros on public land. More than 7,000 of these horses graze land in Arizona.
We care about all wild horses, but particularly in Arizona, there's not that many wild horses left.
Simone Netherlands with the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group spends her time caring for wild horses near the Salt River.
We maintain the fences, we rescue the horses if they need it, if one breaks a leg or if one gets stuck in a cattle guard. We rescue those horses, cost the government nothing.
While the Salt River horses have human advocates to support them, a herd of wild horses in the Apache Sitgraves National Forest aren't so lucky. The herd, numbering around 400, is at the center of a battle after the Forest Service proposed removing them and selling them to buyers.
We remove unauthorized livestock. So if that's cattle or horses, that's part of our regulations.
A 2019 lawsuit filed by the Center for Biological Diversity showed the horses destroying the habitat of the New Mexico meadow jumping mouse. The Forest Service agreed to remove the horses and rehabilitate the area.
We are going to be working with a contractor, and we will have passive trapping operations, and then animals will be sold at a public sale.
Netherlands believes there are better options than removing the horses. For instance, managing them like the Salt River horses.
Very similar. It's exactly the same amount of horses. And it's doable.
Approximately 400 wild horses live here at the Salt River. Now, the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group has been able to find an effective tool to level off the population, birth control. And they say in its effective method to level off the population for alpine horses.
We worked hard, and we only have 2 foals from last year.
These horses, I love them. I drive and I go see them, but they need someone taking care of them.
Tiffany Willis owns land near where the alpine horses roam. She says they need to be monitored more closely and supports removing them.
They need homes. They need someone loving them because it's rough country up there.
Netherlands and the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group are in talks with the department to potentially care for these horses.
We're working to negotiate with the Forest Service, and if that doesn't work, then we will sue them.
Ultimately, they hope a managed group of horses is allowed to roam in the Apache Sitgraves Forest, like the Salt River horses. In Fort McDowell, Mitchell Zimmerman, Cronkite News.
In a press release, the U.S. Forest Service says they are continuing plans to remove up to 20 wild horses. So far, there's no date set for their removal.
Your favorite member benefit is getting better and bigger.
This is wonderful.
Over the next year, Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream.
They give us all that they've got.
From your favorite cooking and travel series.
Even the stairs are breathtaking.
To history specials and award-winning documentaries. Better and bigger.
That really is the fun part.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app. Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream. For the first time ever, our most popular programs have been selected just for you.
But there's so much more.
Whether you like to travel,
Wow.
feast,
And calories don't count.
look back,
That is me.
discover.
And you know the whole story.
There's something for everyone.
Let's get to it right away.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app.
1,800 gallons of water to produce one pair of jeans. The fashion industry has some work to do when it comes to being eco-friendly, but Cronkite News reporter Peyton Major found a few places in our backyard that are making clothes sustainably.
Arizona is making waves in the sustainable fashion industry. Fabric, a nonprofit, guides small businesses to create eco-friendly products from the start.
Fashion is the second most polluting industry on the planet. It's second to the oil industry and probably catching up very fast. And so it's ready to be, disrupted.
Fabric gives people a place to work and bring their ideas to life. Using their new Cornet Presto printer, they're able to create water-free, personalized designs with less labor than traditional clothing production. And they are the first in the nation to do so. This kind of technology sets small businesses up for success.
The good news is that fashion as a whole, the whole industry has had a wake-up call. And so there's more and more options. They're really being more conscious in how they're actually making the fabrics so that then the end product is also, more sustainable.
Shopping in mind can be difficult with the increase of greenwashing.
Companies are stating that they have sustainable practices, that they're transparent. It's just a statement. Not all of us have the time to sit here and research everything that we purchase.
Abril says sustainability isn't just about using recycled materials, but it can be about ethics, workplace conditions, and fair wages. Another company, Live Tall, has found success in making their apparel to order and donating fabric scraps to a local nonprofit.
Like, I literally work shoulder to shoulder with my pattern maker. I know I can go in and say hello to the people who are making my clothes.
Zadrali says the first step to shopping sustainable is being aware of your purchases and where they come from. Peyton Major, Cronkite News.
Starting April 15th, Fabric is hosting their annual Eco Fashion Week. One event to look forward to is their Refabricate Fashion Show, featuring apparel made with donated denim scraps.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.